What's up, guys? Welcome to your 141st Android tutorial for the New Boston. What we're going to do in this tutorial, well, we're basically going to finish up, our first button where we can draw to the screen. Draw our icon to a certain location on our map. So what we're going to first do is we have this list overlay type list, and we want to create that so we can reference it within our, our add pinpoint alert button. So let's just cut this out and we're going to paste it above, and then we're also going to copy that, set that equal to our map overlays right here. So again, that's just going to get our overlays from our map view, and then we're going to add our touchy that we have set up down here, touchy class. So now that we have that set up, we can kind of reference it within this onClick method of place a pinpoint. We also have this geopoint that is getting the projection from our pixels according to where we touch on the screen, so we're going to reference that as well. First thing that we need to do is create an overlay item. So we're just going to say overlay item, and we're just going to call this overlay item, something like that. And we're going to set this equal to a new overlay item, and we're going to refer to our point, our geopoint called touch point. So we're going to say touch point, and then we're also going to add some some string references, which I'll show you guys what that does at the end of this tutorial. So we're just going to say what's up, and then also another one is just maybe second string, so you guys know which parameters do what. Nothing too complex here, but we just create a new overlay item. Now what we want to do is we want to refer to our custom variable, and we want to add this overlay item. So we're just going to say custom, and we have that method within our custom class which we created called insert pinpoint, and we're going to insert our overlay item that we just created. So all that's going to do is add it to our array list that we set up, because again it takes overlay item, which is what we created here. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to say our overlay list, which we created or which we modified at the beginning of this tutorial, that gets all of our overlays. We call it overlay list, and we're just going to add now our custom overlay. So we're just going to say custom here. And we're pretty much done with this tutorial. Again, all that we're doing is we're creating an overlay item that is going to be our touch point reference. Then we're creating a custom pinpoint object, which is going to pass in the context, or I'm sorry, a drawable, and then the context. What that's going to do is call this constructor. Custom pinpoint, the drawable, and the context. Then we're passing our drawable into this constructor, because again we're just passing a drawable. So it's going to shoot it up to this constructor, where we're going to bound the center of that drawable. And it's also going to set the context here. And then we're going to go back to this class where we refer to that, and we use the insert pinpoint, where we just add an overlay to, let me go back here. We insert a pinpoint, which just adds that overlay item that's being passed in to our pinpoint array list. And then all we do is we use our overlay list from the top of this activity that grabs all of our overlays, and we add this new one called custom that we just set up. So let's run our application, make sure it works, and kind of show you guys what it does. So now what we can do is we can hold and click and hold, and we can say place pinpoint, and it places a pinpoint right at the center location where we clicked. And now even when we zoom in, it's always going to be there at that location. And that's again our custom overlay that we created. And basically what we could do, which I probably won't do in this tutorial or in this series, is we could click on it and refer to these string references that we set up here called what's up and second string. That's why we added those string references. But for the most part, we aren't going to worry about that. But again, we can place as many pinpoints as we want. place pinpoint. It takes a little bit to place it, but there we go. And again, we can zoom in and see where we actually place that pinpoint. But that's pretty much it for our maps tutorial. We still might be working with this application to get like location, see where the phone is, and all that stuff, and all that good stuff. But as for Google Maps, and I mean, pretty much that's all we're gonna do. Now we're gonna work with location, and I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial where we're gonna do that. So have a good one, and I'll see you guys later. Peace. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 142nd Android tutorial for the new Boston. And what we're going to do in this tutorial is basically we're going to draw our pinpoint right when our activity starts based on the location of the user of the phone. So it's just going to place a pinpoint right where they are. So what we're going to have to do is use the GPS to find where their phone is, to get the location from by triangulating the different providers. So it sounds kind of complicated, but it's not going to be too difficult. The first thing that we need to do is we need to set up that bitmap that we're going to draw, or that point that we're going to draw, and we're going to do that within our onCreate method of our map activity. So I just want you guys to scroll down to our first alert, place a pinpoint button, and we're just going to copy this whole thing within the onClick method. So we're just going to hit Control-C, scroll up to our onCreate, maybe leave a comment. Placing pinpoint at location. That way we know everything under this line is just for a location. We're going to paste that there, and also the other thing that we need to do is set up a geopoint, and we're going to call this our location. We're going to set that equal to new geopoint. And we're just going to call this we're going to call this latitude and longitude, or lat and long, longi, like that maybe. And then we're also going to have to set up those variables to be ints. So we're going to say int lat is equal to 0 to start out with, int longi is also equal to 0, and there we go. We also want to change this overlay item that we're passing in to be this geopoint, our location. So right now it's just going to draw again our pinpoint at location 0, but what we're going to do is we're going to change these longitude and latitude values to basically where the person is using this application, and we need to do that through a location listener. So that's going to kind of, again, like I said, triangulate the position of the phone according to different towers and all that stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to our activity, and we're going to let it implement a location listener. So we're going to say implements location listener, like that. And again, we just have to hover over, import, and we also have to add the methods that we need to implement. So we're going to add those and scroll down to the bottom. We have 4 new methods: on location change, on provider disabled, on provider enabled, and on status changed. So we're going to be setting those up. I know this class, or this this activity is getting quite lengthy. We aren't probably going to do too much more in Google Maps, or the Maps API, after we're done with this location listener. So just keep that in mind. We're going to go back to our the new Boston Basics project here in a little bit, but I just want to show you guys a little bit more for Google Maps activities. So now that we have those 4 methods set up at the bottom, what we want to do is we want to create a string reference that our whole class is going to refer to, as well as a location manager. So we're going to first set up our location manager. We're going to call this location manager, and that's just going to help us manage basically the location. So import that as well, and also a string reference, and we're going to call this tower. or towers. So there we go. We have those set up. I know they probably don't mean much now, but I'll try and walk through this section a little bit slowly, even though it's not too complicated. It seems to me anyways, I've been kind of going quickly through some of these tutorials, so sorry if I lost some of you guys. But for the most part, I just want everyone to be caught up at this point. So probably all we're going to do in this tutorial is set up our location manager and add our permissions to our activity that we're going to need. So again, under our placing pinpoints comment, we're just going to set up our location manager, which we called LM, and we're just going to set this equal to be, we're going to cast it as a location manager, and then we're going to use a method that's going to get the system service, which we've used a few times now, I believe. And we're going to say context dot location service. Basically all this is going to do is retrieve a location manager for controlling the location updates, those methods that we just added or implemented. So again, we're just going to say location service, hit enter, and now we have our location manager set up. Let's also set up our permissions. So we're going to go into our Android manifest, add a few more permissions so we can get, you know, kind of either a rough estimate of where the person is or a fine location. So we're going to add both of those. So we're going to go over to our permissions, say add permission, uses permission, and then we want to use the one that says access fine location and access coarse location. So we're going to add that and then add another one for our coarse location, just in case we can't really get, you know, a fine-tuned location. We're going to be able to access roughly where we're at. So save that, and there we go. Those are the two new permissions that we need for location manager and working with the specific location of a person using the application. So there we go. We got that set up. And that's pretty much it for this tutorial. Again, we set up our location manager that's going to help us kind of, you know, manage the location, and we added our permissions, and I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. Have a good one. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 143rd Android tutorial for the new Boston. What we're going to do in this tutorial, we're basically going to set up this location manager to get the last known location of basically our towers. In reference to, you know, triangulating in those towers. So first thing we need to do is set up a criteria, and we're going to just call this C or crit maybe, and we're just going to set this equal to new criteria, just kind of the standard default criteria, and then we're going to just import that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to set up this string called towers based off kind of our location manager and the criteria, what kind of criteria we're looking for. So what we're going to do is say towers. We're going to set this equal to our location manager called LM, and then we're going to say dot get best provider. And as you can see, it takes criteria and also a Boolean value. So we're going to set the criteria to crit and enabled only to false. And as you guys can see, if we hover over, basically what this method is doing is returning the name or the provider that best fits the given criteria. So we're basically getting the best, you know, the best reception or whatever you guys want to think of that as. And also we can kind of use different things like power requirement, speed, accuracy, altitude, some of the things that we can check for. But again, we're just basically getting the best provider given our criteria. And since our criteria is just kind of a default criteria, you know, it's going to kind of give us the default best provider for this application. Since we're just kind of getting a location, we don't really need to specify our criteria that much. And now what we're going to do is we're going to set up a location. We're going to call this location L, or location maybe like this. And then we're going to set this equal to, again, our location manager. And then we're going to use a method called get last known location, and it takes a string. So that's why we set up this string called towers, because that's what we're going to refer to. And again, all we're doing is the towers is getting the best criteria, and then we're going to try and access a location through the location manager, getting the last known location called towers. And then what we're going to do is, as long as our location is not equal to be null, as long as we got some sort of location, that's where we're going to set up basically what we have here. So we're going to say if location is not null, then we're going to set up our int value. Again, we can cut this. Actually, we're just going to say lat is equal to, and then we're going to cast it in as an int because this isn't going to return an int value. And what we're going to do is we're going to say location dot get latitude, and we're also going to say longi is equal to, again, casting in an int, and again our location dot get longitude. So that's just going to return our latitude and longitude values. It's giving us an error because we defined those variables down here. What we're going to actually do is cut these and paste them above our class. I know I kind of jump around when I do these tutorials, so sorry if you guys get kind of lost sometimes, but again, make sure you define these variables lat and long above our class so we can refer to them later, such as right here. Now that's going to get our lat and long, and then what we're going to do is we're going to do our geopoint and basically add our overlay to our list within, again, this if statement. So we're just going to print and we're good to go. Else we can just make a text or something. We're just going to say toast dot make text context main dot this, or base context, get base context, whatever you guys want to type. We're going to say couldn't get provider. And duration toast dot length short, and then we're just going to say dot show. So we don't even set up a toast variable, we're just going to again show it and create it. So there we go, we kind of have that working. But the problem that we may be having is, again, this is all created within the onCreate method, so it might not work. But that we're going to finish up this this whole Google Maps stuff in the next tutorial, where we're going to use some of those methods that we implemented and get everything working right. So I'll catch you guys then, and have a good one. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 144th Android tutorial for the new Boston. What we're going to do in this tutorial is basically polish up our application, get it going, and I'll kind of demonstrate what it does at the end. But what we want to do is we want to kind of disable our location manager, when we go on pause or when we aren't actually needing it. So what we're going to do is go into our resume method here that we created, and so we have our location manager set up within our onCreate method, but within our resume method, what we're going to do is we're going to say request location update, and so we're just going to say our location manager dot request location update, takes a string and a time and a minimum distance that we want. So we're just going to click that and hit for provider. We want our towers reference or string, and then what we want is for minimum time, we'll give it like half a second, and for the minimum distance, we're going to give it like 1, and for listener, we're going to say this, referring to the listener that we implemented for this activity. So now that we have we're going to request the location update, and then also on our onPause method, what we're going to do is say remove updates. So we're just going to say our location manager dot remove updates, and it's the listener again that we implemented, so we're just going to say this. So we're basically removing our listener that we implemented in our class. So again, we're going to request the location update when we hit the resume method. Now what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down to the very bottom, those 4 methods that we can work with according to that location listener that we implemented for our class. So for the most part, they're all self-explanatory. Like for provider disabled, we could refer to the provider that's being passed, or the string that's being passed in, and say, we disabled this provider. or enabled it, just some kind of a toast if you want. The only one that we're going to work with is this OnLocationChanged, and what we're going to do is we're getting this location that's being passed in. I'm going to change it to L so we can work with it that way instead of arg0, which it gets annoying. And all we're going to do is set our lat value to equal, again, the location that's being passed in. Again, we have to convert it into an int by casting int, and we're going to say L.get latitude, and longi is equal to, again, int L.get latitude or get longitude. And now we can also draw within this method. So let's say our application is going to draw a new pixel or a new pinpoint every time this location hits. So we're going to scroll up and just copy that code that we put within our if statement when we created just the geopoint and add an overlay. So we're just going to copy that, scroll down to the bottom, and paste it down here. Pretty much the same concept. Every time our location is changed, we're going to paint a new icon, which isn't really probably the best thing, but just to show you guys what it does. I'll catch you in real life when we're going to test this application, make sure everything works, and that's pretty much it for Google Maps, but I'll see you guys in a second. What's up, guys? Just tested it out and showed like I was in the ocean or something. So I went back to the code and tried to figure this out, and all we need to do is add this times 1e to the 6th or 1e6 to our latitude and to our longitude, and then it'll give us the proper location, because before we weren't timesing it by that, so you'll show up where you weren't supposed to be. So make sure you just change that, and within your onCreate method, again, just times it by that as well. And now I'll show you guys what it looks like. What's up, guys? So when we open up our map activity and we zoom out, we should see an icon pop up in the general location. Again, we aren't looking for the most specific we aren't looking for the most specific location, so it's probably not that great for like some kind of running application where you like, whoa, what's going on, where you're running, but you get kind of the general idea of where I'm located at right now. I mean, it's probably a few blocks away, but just as every time that onChanged method gets called, which I'm going to try and like walk around or something and get that called, another icon will be painted to basically our map. Come on, like run into a tree or something. But anyways, so that's basically the application. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 145th Android tutorial for the new Boston. What we're going to do in this tutorial is get our actual key for when we're developing for the marketplace, because right now we're working with our debug key, so we need to get our actual key. But before we do that, we need to be able to sign our project and export it. So that's what we're going to do in this tutorial, and then in the next tutorial we'll actually get the key and all that good stuff. So let's get into it. I know I told you guys we were done with the map stuff. Well, I kind of lied, but kind of didn't, because we aren't going to program anything. I'm going to teach you guys how to export. So what we're going to do is right click on our package called Maps, go to Android Tools, and then Export Signed Application Package. And we're going to click our Maps, make sure it's on Maps, hit Next. So we don't have a key store yet, so we're going to say Create New Key Store, and we're going to browse for a location. Now what I like to do is go into my documents and create a folder called Android Apps, because we want to remember where this key store is, and we want to remember where our APK file is that we're going to finish at the end of this tutorial. And we also need to remember all our passwords. We need to remember pretty much everything when we want to update our application after it's been on the marketplace, or just pretty much anything we do after we sign it to the marketplace the first time. We need to remember where all these locations are. Even to get our actual key for a map application, we're going to have to remember where this is. So just create a folder called Android Apps, and we're going to say Maps, save this as Maps alias, or not alias, Maps key store. hit enter, and then we need to create a password that we're going to remember. I'm going to say Travis and hit enter. So now that's where we created our key store, and we also have to create an alias. So I'm going to label mine maps alias. And again, you guys have to remember your alias and your key store and all those passwords, so just try and keep it simple. And I'm going to say for my password it's Travis, again Travis, and validity is for 1,000 years. And also you might want to reference your first name, or if you even want to fill out more information about yourself, you can. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to give my first name Travis and hit next. And then we need to assign our APK file to a destination. So we're going to hit browse in Android applications, and our APK file is called maps. So hit next. Once it's in that folder, hit finish. And that basically exports our project. So when we try and upload to the marketplace, or for example in the next tutorial where we get our key for Google Maps activity, we're going to have to remember those locations, and I'll kind of show you guys how to do that in the next tutorial. So I'll catch you guys then, and have a good one. What's up guys, welcome to your 146th Android tutorial for the new Boston. And again, what we're going to do is get our actual key for a map instead of the debug key. And since we exported our project and signed it, now we can get our actual key. So what I want you guys to do again, go to this website, code.google.com/add-ons/Google-APIs/mapkey.html. And that's going to bring us to this site. Again, we're just going to scroll down to basically this line of code that we're going to follow. Again, you guys want to open up your command prompt, and or you do that by going to Start on Windows and then CMD, or on Mac you go Applications, Utilities, and then Terminal. And this is where we're going to get our fingerprint for the most part. So let's go back into our Finder, or whatever. Let me pull this over. I'm going to go into Finder, Documents, Android Apps, and then what we're going to do is right click on our Maps key store and go to like Get Information. I forgot what it's called on Windows. I mean, just had Mac for like a month and I already pretty much forgot Windows entirely. But there we go. Basically, you're going to get the location. We're going to copy this path and refer to it in our terminal or in our command prompt. So let's get started. All we have to do is type keystore, or keytool, I'm sorry, -list space -alias, and again our alias was named map alias. So this is where it's a little bit different than last time, because again we have to refer to the name of the alias that we saved within our key store. And then we're going to say space -keystore, and then space, and then our path. So I'm going to hit Control V / basically our key store name, which we called Maps Key Store. So Maps Key Store, and then we have to hit space -store pass, and our password was Travis, or whatever your guys' password was, and then our key pass was also Travis. Then when we hit enter, we should get our fingerprint here, which again is pretty much the same as last time. We just copy that, and we're going to go down to register a certificate fingerprint, and we're going to hit I've read and Control paste, and then all we do is hit generate API key. I probably am going to blur out all this stuff because I'm not for sure if I'm supposed to show you guys, but hopefully you get the gist. And then here's our new key that we are going to copy and paste into our project. So we're just going to copy this, and then I'm going to pretend like I paste it where our debug key is, but actually I'm going to paste it and then run our application and make sure it still works. Alright, so basically pasted that, ran our application, and hopefully it still is going to load our map. If it doesn't, you guys need to probably redo the terminal or the command prompt and make sure that's right. So hopefully it works. And yeah, for the most part it's good. For some reason I think it should be good. I don't know why it's loading like that. I think if I run it on my phone it will actually work. But as long as you get some sort of map, it should work, and then we can assign this to the marketplace and it will work. So I'll catch you guys. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 147th Android tutorial for the new Boston. What we're going to get into is working with the HTTP client to get some information from the internet and kind of process that information, parse it, and use it to our own benefit. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our new Boston project that we've been working in, and we're just going to right click and create a new class. You know, just the standard stuff you guys are experts at right now. And we're going to call this class HTTP example, and just get our class set up. We also want to set up a layout, so we're going to just do a real quick layout, nothing new. Again, just right click, new Android XML file, and we're going to call this HTTP example or EX, something like that. Hit finish. All we're going to have in this layout is just one text view. We're going to kind of retrieve some information from the internet. So just go into your code, your XML, and just type loading data, and we're going to give this a reference of TV HTTP, something like that. Hit save. We also might want to put a scroll view in there. Think about it. So we're just gonna go above our text view and put in a scroll view and give it the reference Android layout height is equal to fill parent, and also Android layout width equal to fill parent as well. And then we're just going to wrap our text view, so we're just going to cut that and paste below, reformat, make sure you guys have the same kind of look here. So there we go, we have our XML layout set up, pretty basic stuff. Now what we're going to do for this example is we're just going to have this one, our class HTTP example extender activity, import and set up our onCreate method. Again, the boring setup. All I've done is I just set up our class with the onCreate method, set content view to that XML layout we just set up, and we also defined our text view, which I made that reference bridge within our onCreate method. Again, nothing new, but this is going to be our main class where we're eventually going to receive a Twitter message, like your last Twitter post, something like that. But as for now, I just want to get you guys familiar with the HTTP client. That's kind of difficult to say, so you guys try and say that 10 times fast. Let me know what happens. But what we're going to do is we're going to hit right click, create a new class, which is going to handle our get method from our HTTP client. So we're just going to call this get method, something like that. Example EX maybe. Hit finish. And this is a class that we're going to use to get the information from the internet. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to set up a method within this class that's going to return a string, which we're going to change our text view to refer to that string. So we're just going to say public string, because again we're returning a string, and we're going to call this get internet data, and this is going to throw an exception. So now that we have our method set up called getInternetData, and this is supposed to be throws. Alright, we're just getting an error because we have to return a string, which we'll get to later. But what we want to do in this class is, or this method is, create a buffered reader, which I'll explain in a second. We're just going to set this equal to be null, and we're going to call that buffer reader in. And we're also going to create a string, and we're going to say this is our data, and we're going to set this equal to null as well. Control Shift O to add our imports, which is our buffered reader. And then what we're going to do is we're going to try to connect to the HTTP client I always wonder if I'm saying that right or not. So let's set up our HTTP client, and we're going to call this just like client, something like that, pretty standard. We're going to set this equal to the new default HTTP client, just the default HTTP client. And what this is going to allow us to do, and just make sure you spell that right, and what this is going to allow us to do is allow our application to process information that's not built internally, so we can rely more on the website and just get some information from the website, and instead of trying to handle all of the data, all the information within our app. So that's what a HTTP client will allow us to do, basically reference the internet. So that's the basic setup for this tutorial. Obviously we still have quite a bit to go, but I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial, and I'll see you guys then. Have a good one. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 148th Android tutorial for the new Boston, where hopefully we'll finish this get method example class, which is again going to just process some information from the internet via this HTTP client that we set up. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to set up a URI, which is basically going to be our website that we're referring to get some data. So we're just going to create a URI, and we're just going to call this website, something like that. We're going to set this equal to a new URI, and then we give the website we want to interpret the data from. So http / www.mybringback.com, and that's our website that we're going to use. And again, you have to add your imports so we can use the URI. And now what we want to do is we want to set up basically the method that we want to use through our client. And since this is an example for get information, we're going to use HttpGet to process that data or get the information from that website. So we're going to set up a variable or instance of the class HttpGet, and we're going to call this our request. What we're going to do, we're going to set this equal to, again, just a new HttpGet method, and then or instance of this class, import, and then what we can do is we can say our request dot set URI, and then we're going to refer to our URI that we just set up, which we call our website. And now we're going to use the get method with the set URI, again just from mybringback.com. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set up basically the information that we're getting from the website, and that's going to be our response. So we're going to set up HTTP response, and we're going to call this just response as well, or response. And basically this is the most important method to make everything happen. It's an execute method on our client. So we're going to say our variable, our HTTP variable, which we call the client, and then we're just going to say dot execute. As you can see, it takes within its parameters basically a get method, which we called request. And again, we set up our website connected to our request or get method, and that's what we're going to actually request. So we're just going to say request like that, and then add our imports again, and everything's good to go. So now that we've set up our method to kind of achieve some of that data, we want to make it readable, or we need to convert it into a string, and that's why we set up this buffered reader. That's going to allow us to read some of the information that we're getting. So we're going to set our buffered reader, which we called in, is equal to a new buffered reader, and it takes within its parameters an input stream. So we're going to have to create a new input stream reader, and within its parameters we're just going to get our response that we sent out. So we're going to say our response, and then we can get entity, and that's just going to open up the entity of the response if there is one, and then we're also going to say get the content after we open up the entity. And there we go, we've set up our buffered reader, and again we just import our input stream reader as well. And it looks like we're probably going to run out of time for this tutorial, so it'll probably be one more tutorial before we finish up this method. Thought we could get it done, but it's taking a little bit too long. But let's just talk over everything that we've done again. We set up a buffered reader to be null and a string, which is our actual return data, to be null. We haven't gotten to that yet. But then what we do is we set up a HttpClient, which is just going to be kind of the default client. We set up a website that we want to process some information from, and we set up some sort of request or some sort of method. And since we're just trying to get the data, we're going to use the HttpGet. There's also a put. There's also like a post method that you can use, but right now we're just working with the get method. Then once we set up our request, which again is just our get method, we're going to set the URI to our website, and then we're going to try and execute everything. So we're going to refer to our client, and we're going to execute the request that we set up, and then we need some way to read it. So we're going to set up a buffered reader, which is going to take an input stream reader, which is basically converting this to input stream. And I have one extra parentheses there, so just delete that. And then that's going to allow us to get some sort of a buffered reader, which we're going to decode in the next tutorial. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 149th Android tutorial for the new Boston. What we're going to do in this tutorial is basically read our code from our buffered reader. And we set up again our input stream reader within our buffered reader, and last tutorial took out that parentheses, but you still want that one in there. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to use a StringBuffer to read through our input or buffer reader. And this is kind of a Java thing, so I probably won't go too much into it. I'll kind of explain what's going on. But if you guys want more information, just check out probably Bucky's Java series. I'm sure he has some more stuff within there, but I'll give you the basic concepts. So what we need to do is we need to set up our StringBuffer. So we're going to say StringBuffer, and we're going to say SB. Going to set this equal to new StringBuffer, and we're just going to put make it pretty much null to start out with. So now what we need to do is we also need to set up a line. So we're going to say string line for L, or L for line, and we're just going to set this also equal to be nothing to start with. And we also want to set up basically a new line type string, because we don't want all of our data just in a paragraph where it's hard to read. So we're just going to say like new line in L, and we're going to set this equal to be the system.get property, and there's string properties that we can refer to. We're going to refer to one called line.separator. So that's just going to separate our lines. And now what we need to do is kind of like when we are processing data or receiving data, we're going to use a while loop to read all of our data and put it within our string buffer. So we're just going to create a while loop, and we're going to say as long as our line is equal to our buffered reader dot read line, as long as there is a line available to read, we're gonna read that line. So then we go within outside that parentheses, and we're going to say as long as that is not equal to be null, we're going to basically read that specific line. So we're going to refer to our string buffer called SB, and we're just going to say append, which is basically going to return the value that we're reading. So we're going to say our line plus we want to add a new line when it's done reading that specific line. And then it's going to loop through again, and as long as there's a line available it's not equal to null, it's going to append the next line and then create a new line, and do that over and over until it's read through the whole document. And then all we're going to do is we're going to close our buffer reader. So we're going to just say in close. This is pretty similar to when we were working with data. This is how we kind of refer to a string buffer, and then what we can do is we can set up our string buffer to equal a string of some sort. So again, we set up our string in the first tutorial of this get method called data. So all we're going to say is data is equal to our string buffer dot toString, and then all we're going to say is return our data, because again this class is looking for some kind of a return method that's going to return a string. So that's what we're going to return, is the data we get from our string buffer. And then we also need to add a catch clause or a finally statement. So we're just going to say finally, and we're going to say, and we're going to just make sure our our buffered reader is closed, again we're just going to say if like in is not equal to null, which for the most part it should have already been closed, but if it wasn't closed, that most likely means that it's still not equal to null. So we're just going to force close it. So we're just going to say again like try and then in.close, and then we're just going to return data as well, because hopefully we got some sort of data attached. And then also we're going to add a catch clause, and we're just going to say catch like an exception E, and then we're just going to print that to the stack trace. Again, we're pretty familiar with that. And there we go, we pretty much have everything set up. Now let's just kind of test this, make sure it works. So we're going to go back over to our HTTP example class, and all we're going to do is we're going to set up a new get method that we just created, EX. We're going to call this test, something like that, and this is going to be equal to new get method EX, and then we can use that method. So we're going to say test, or we can set up a new string, maybe returned, and we're going to set this equal to our test dot, and we have that method we just created called get internet data, and that's what we're going to return to the string. And then we're just going to set our text view that we have set up to equal that string. So again, just HTTP stuff, and we're going to say dot set text to our new string that we just created called returned. And also we have to add a catch clause, a try and a catch around this, because again we're working with an exception of some sort that could be thrown. So what we want to do is we also want to set this text within that catch clause as well. So then if it doesn't get set to anything, we know we have some sort of error as well. Just always good to keep that in mind of how our application runs and if it's actually working. So we're just going to run our application, and we're going to go down to our HTTP example, click that, and hopefully our text view, and see our text view already changed the data. And this is kind of the stuff that we get back. As you can see, and we can also break this down, which we'll get into later, but as you can see, it's kind of nicely structured of the information that's being passed in through our website. And again, I had that scroll view just for this reason, so we can scroll through here and kind of see some of the stuff like keywords, the meta name, just some of the background stuff of the website that we can read and process and access some of that information. But that's pretty much it for the get method using the HTTP client. We'll get into, again, that Twitter, just like kind of breaking down some code a little bit better using JSON in the next few tutorials. But just to give you guys kind of an idea how to get some information with that get method through our HTTP client, that's how you do so. So thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next tutorial.
What's up, guys? Welcome to your 150th Android tutorial for the new Boston, and just want to say congratulations for getting this far. I know we've gone kind of quick in some places, been pretty boring lately, so I apologize for that. Just been trying to get all these tutorials done, and so my humor just went down the drain. But let's just try and keep going here. First thing, if you guys notice, I just deleted pretty much our get method, and we're just starting again brand new from within this class. We're going to actually parse some data from Twitter using JSON, which is JavaScript object notation, and we're just going to read some information from basically the JSON URL, which I'll kind of explain what it looks like and all that stuff as we go. But first, we're going to create a new method within our class that returns a JSON object. So we're just going to say public JSON object. It's the type that it's going to return, and we're going to call this last tweet, something like that. And we're going to get passed in a string that is going to be the user name, something like that. And we also want to throw some exceptions. So we're going to say throws client protocol exception, input output exception, and a JSON exception or JSON exception. Alright, so now that we have this method set up, we've got to add all of our imports. Control-Shift-O again, and it adds our imports for us. And we need some kind of a return statement that's going to return a JSON object. We'll get to that in a second. The first thing that we want to do again is have a HTTP client that's going to basically be a default. So we're going to set that up above our class so we can refer to it everywhere else. So HTTP client, and we're going to say this client is again, just keep things kind of familiar there. Then our onCreate method, we might say client is equal to new default HTTP client, just standard default client. Nothing new for the most part. Again, just add our imports. Alright, so now let's get into it. Basically, mainstream websites that use some kind of JavaScript, object notation or JSON allows that to be public, so people like us can pull some of the information and use it in our applications. And Twitter has a JSON that we can actually pull some information from, and you can search like Twitter JSON, and a lot of top few results will show you the actual website link that you guys can get some information from, and what type of JavaScript notation it is. For this one, what we're going to do is we're going to set up that URL above our class, because it's not going to change. So we're just going to say final static string, and we're just going to call this URL, something like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to refer to the JSON string called http://api.twitter.com/1/statuses/timeline.json. So that's the one that we're going to use. Again, you can just search in Google to find different types and see which, what it does. And for this one, it just kind of pulls up, I think, the last few tweets or something. And I'll get into what that website actually looks like, or what that URL string does, and all that good stuff as we go. But now what we want to do is we just want to build a string builder. So we're going to say string builder. We're going to call this one URL. And this one's lowercase URL, so it's different than our string. We're going to set this equal to be a new string builder. And we're going to say URL within the parentheses. So basically what we're doing is using a string builder to build the string off of our JSON code or URL, whatever you guys want to refer to that as. And then what we're going to do is we're going to parse some data from that. But before we do that, I want to show you guys what this kind of looks like. So we're going to do that first. So give yourself a few spaces. We're just going to use again the HttpGet command, and we're just going to say get, and this is equal to new HttpGet, and then we're going to refer to our URL lowercase .toString. So again, nothing new for the most part, and that's probably it for this tutorial. We haven't done too much, but we do now kind of understand that some mainstream services like Twitter allow some JSON references that we can pull some data from and use. And our application actually doesn't do all of that work. It's Twitter that's doing the work, and we're just pulling some of the data. So that's probably the lesson for today. But we're going to get into setting up this last tweet method to return a JSON object, and I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. Have a good one.